Picture this: a kid from Harlem who refused to stay in the shadows. A hustler with a vision so sharp it could cut through concrete. A young Sean Combs, who believed without a single doubt that the world would say his name one day, and they did. He wasn't just a producer. He wasn't just an artist. He became a movement, a cultural force. One of the most powerful moguls hip-hop had ever seen. Bad Boy Records took over the streets. Diddy's energy lit up every room he stepped into. He created stars, shaped eras, and turned his name into a billion-dollar empire built on swagger, ambition, and pure, undeniable drive. But here's the thing about going that high. The spotlight follows you everywhere, and sometimes it doesn't just highlight your achievements. It exposes the shadows you thought you left behind. Because years later, the story took a sharp turn. The headlines changed. The conversations shifted. And suddenly, the man who once defined the culture became the center of controversy. Investigations, lawsuits, and questions that nobody ever expected to hear attached to his legacy. People aren't asking, how did Diddy rise? They're asking, what happened? How did it come to this? In today's video, we're not here to repeat rumors. We're not here to judge. We're here to break down the full picture, the grind, the glory, the power, the pressure, and the fall that shocked the entire industry. This is the story behind the success. The story behind the headlines. The story behind the man. This is what really happened to Diddy before the fame. Before the headlines. Before the world called him Diddy, there was just a kid from Harlem trying to outrun the limits placed on him. Sean Combs wasn't born into money, privilege, or access. He was born into a neighborhood where hustle wasn't a personality trait, it was survival. And from the very beginning, he had something that most people around him didn't: a fire. A fire to build something bigger than the world had ever seen from someone who looked like him. Growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, Sean learned quickly that nothing was promised. His father passed when he was young, leaving his mother to raise him and his sister alone. That kind of loss shapes a kid. It either breaks you or forces you to rise faster than your age. For Sean, it was the second one. The absence of a father created a hunger, a drive to become the provider he never had. And that hunger would follow him everywhere he went. By high school, Sean wasn't just another kid. He was that kid. The energetic one. The organizer. The unspoken leader. If there was an event, he'd find a way to run it. If there was a crowd, he'd find a way to hype it. The same confidence that would later dominate music videos began in school hallways and gymnasiums. He wasn't afraid to dream. And he definitely wasn't afraid to act on those dreams. After graduating, Sean got into Howard University, a place known for producing leaders, creators, and culture shapers. But he didn't go there to follow the rules. He went there to rewrite them. Sean began throwing parties on campus that drew hundreds of students. The energy he brought, the vibe he crafted, it was something people hadn't seen before. His name started buzzing, not as a student, but as a force. But that wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted the music industry, the heart of culture, the engine of influence. So when he landed an internship at Uptown Records, he treated it like his shot at destiny. Most interns grabbed coffee. Sean grabbed opportunities. He was loud, he was bold, he was everywhere. And the executives noticed. The internship became a job. The job became a mission. He helped develop artists, find talent, shape sounds that would soon take over the entire East Coast. And that was just the beginning of the legend that would become Puff Daddy. But with ambition that big, friction is inevitable. Sean's energy, the same energy that built momentum, was also explosive. Uptown eventually let him go, and for most people, that would have been the end. But for Sean Combs, it was ignition. Being fired didn't crush him, it launched him. Because out of that door, came Bad Boy Entertainment. And Bad Boy wasn't just a record label. It was an era, a movement, a cultural reset. It arrived loud, confident, and unstoppable. Sean brought in artists who would change music forever, including a rapper from Brooklyn with a voice that felt like destiny, Christopher Wallace. The notorious B.I.G. The moment Biggie and Puff connected, the landscape of hip-hop shifted. Puffy wasn't just producing tracks, he was crafting an empire, building an aesthetic, shaping a sound that blended street grit with mainstream shine. Bad Boy became the label that could do everything: hardcore rap, R&B, radio hits, club anthems. The streets respected it, the charts embraced it, and the industry feared it. But success comes with storms. And in the mid-90s, hip-hop was changing fast. Tension on the East Coast and West Coast intensified. The music world turned competitive, personal, and increasingly dangerous. For Puffy, the climb to the top came with weight he'd never anticipated. Tragedy struck in 1997, when Biggie was killed, a moment that shattered the entire hip-hop community. For Puff, it was personal. It was long. By the early 2000s, Diddy was everywhere: TV, fashion, business, music, nightlife. He didn't just rise, he exploded. From Sean John clothing to C-Rock partnerships. From making artists to making brands. From building hits to building wealth. Diddy became something hip-hop had never seen at that level before. A mogul. A billionaire-in-the-making. A symbol of success. But here's the thing. The higher you rise, the louder the world watches. The more powerful you become, the more pressure builds behind the scenes. And the world didn't know it yet. But the story of Diddy wasn't just about a rise. It was also the beginning of a much darker chapter. A chapter that the world would start piecing together. Years later, one headline at a time, by the early 2000s. Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just riding the wave of success, he was the wave. He had survived tragedies, rebuilt his empire, redefined hip-hop. And now he was stepping into a phase of his life that felt larger than music. Larger than culture, larger than anything he had ever imagined as a kid growing up in Harlem. This was the moment where he stopped being just a producer or performer and became a full-blown American mogul. What made Diddy different from every other rising star was simple. He knew hip-hop wasn't just sound, it was identity, attitude, fashion, and influence. And he understood before most people that influence could be turned into business. The man had a gift for seeing opportunity where others saw limits. And he wasn't afraid to take risks big enough to make the industry nervous. One of the first major moves he made was launching Sean John, the clothing brand that would completely transform urban fashion. At a time when the world didn't see streetwear as luxury, Diddy turned it into the main event. His oversized jackets, velour suits, bold logos, they weren't just clothes, they were culture. His brand walked runways, appeared in magazines, won awards, and became the uniform of a generation. Every city in America had kids trying to dress like the lifestyle Diddy was selling, and he didn't stop at fashion. Diddy understood something most people missed. Music builds fame, but business builds empires. So he went after everything: television, marketing, film, reality shows, artist development, even the nightlife scene. If there was a lane to dominate, Diddy stepped into it without hesitation. Then came one of the most pivotal deals in celebrity history: his partnership with CROC Vodka. Before this deal, liquor brands didn't look at hip-hop the way they do now. Artists weren't getting equity, weren't shaping campaigns, and weren't becoming faces of billion-dollar products. But Diddy didn't want a paycheck, he wanted ownership. He wanted the kind of deal that would change the trajectory of celebrity, business forever. And that's exactly what he got. Diddy transformed CROC from a little-known vodka into a symbol of luxury. He marketed it with the same energy he used to promote hit records, flashy parties, A-list events, world-class branding, and that signature Diddy lifestyle that people couldn't get enough of. Before long, CROC wasn't just a drink. It was a status symbol. And whether people realized it or not, they were buying into Diddy's vision, Diddy's lifestyle, Diddy's world. Meanwhile, he kept creating. He kept performing. He kept producing music. He kept signing new artists. Most moguls step back from the spotlight once they start building businesses, but Diddy wasn't built like that. He wanted to be everywhere, to feel the energy, to stay in control of the culture he helped shape. So even as he managed million-dollar meetings, corporate negotiations, and massive brand expansions, he was still dancing in his own videos, still jumping on stages, still delivering hits. He was relentless, unstoppable, and absolutely committed to staying on top. But with that kind of success comes pressure most people never see. Behind the celebrations, behind the fame, behind the luxury and power, there was a constant expectation to keep winning, to keep growing, to keep proving he deserved the throne. The higher he climbed, the louder the world watched. And success at that level doesn't just attract attention. It attracts criticism, questions, and the kind of scrutiny that never fully goes away. As the years went on, subtle cracks started to appear around the edges of the Diddy empire. Old stories resurfaced. New rumors began circulating. Business disputes popped up in the media. Former associates had things to say. Social media amplified conversations that once would have died quietly. Nothing was concrete. Nothing was proven. But in the internet age, whispers echo louder than ever, and slowly. A different kind of conversation started forming around Diddy. A conversation not about his achievements, but about the shadows behind the spotlight. It wasn't a downfall. Not yet. But it was the shift before the storm, the moment in every iconic story, where the world begins to wonder whether a person can stay at the top forever, or if gravity eventually catches up. And for Diddy, this moment was the beginning. The public only sees the flash, the parties, the successes. They see Diddy in his tailored suits celebrating album launches, throwing exclusive CROC parties, walking the red carpet with stars. But behind that glitz, there were pressures few could imagine. Running multiple businesses, managing superstar artists, negotiating billion-dollar deals, staying relevant in a constantly evolving culture. Every decision mattered. Every misstep had consequences. It was during this period that cracks began to show. Headlines started shifting from Diddy dominates to whispers of lawsuits, disputes, and controversies. Rivalries within the industry became more visible. Business disagreements surfaced in ways that threatened to overshadow his achievements. Social media, still in its infancy, but already powerful, began amplifying these stories. Even minor incidents became magnified, dissected, and debated across blogs, forums, and early YouTube channels. One of the most delicate aspects of Diddy's life was managing public perception. He had cultivated an image of ultimate control, unshakable confidence, and relentless ambition. But the world was now questioning that image. Fans and media began asking uncomfortable questions. Could one man really maintain this level of empire without personal or professional fallout? Was the persona larger than the reality? And what about the moments behind closed doors, the pressure, the mistakes, the compromises that the public never saw? Then came the scrutiny tied to his past. People began digging into earlier incidents, trying to connect dots that weren't always clear. Rumors, often unverified, spread quickly, threatening to redefine narratives that had been carefully built over decades. While Diddy never publicly addressed every rumor, the mere existence of them started to create a tension between his empire and his personal brand. It was a reminder that no matter how high someone rises, the world never stops watching. Even as the scrutiny intensified, Diddy remained outwardly unstoppable. He continued releasing hits, expanding Sean John, hosting iconic events, and building business ventures. But behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. Every decision required strategy, foresight, and sometimes damage control. A single headline, a single misstep, could threaten the balance he had worked so hard to achieve. This period also highlighted a broader truth about fame. The higher you climb, the fewer people you can trust. Relationships shift. Alliances change. People who were once loyal can become opportunistic when stakes rise. For someone like Diddy, whose entire life was built on vision, influence, and control, the personal cost was enormous. He had to constantly navigate a complex web of friends, collaborators, rivals. And media where a single misjudgment could become a public spectacle. Yet even as the pressure mounted, Diddy's genius remained undeniable. He turned every challenge into a potential opportunity, every controversy into a moment that could reinforce his empire. He understood the optics of power, and he used every tool available: music, fashion, business deals, appearances, social media to shape the narrative. But this was also the beginning of a turning point. The very tools that elevated him, his visibility, his influence, his global reach, now made him vulnerable in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. The mid-too late 2000s would later be remembered as a time when Diddy's image was tested in the public eye. Not because he failed, but because the stakes had become impossibly high. The empire he built demanded perfection, and perfection in the public spotlight is impossible. Even the slightest misstep, the smallest rumor, could spark debates that would echo across the industry for years. And as history would show, this period would mark the first real challenges to the narrative of unstoppable. Diddy, narrative that had dominated headlines for more than a decade. But here's the truth. Even in this era of scrutiny, Diddy remained a master of reinvention. He never let public pressure define him entirely. He used the very attention he drew to continue building. He understood the rhythm of culture, the cycles of attention. Music remained central to his identity. Diddy wasn't producing as prolifically as he had in the 90s, but he understood the value of impact over volume. He curated collaborations, mentored younger artists, and leveraged his network to maintain relevance. Each appearance, each feature, each strategic release reminded audiences and the industry alike that Diddy's fingerprints were still everywhere. The mogul was proving that influence isn't always about the headlines, it's about legacy, timing, and strategy. But the reinvention wasn't limited to business and music. Diddy had learned over the years that perception matters as much as reality. He embraced philanthropy, visibility in cultural events, and public projects that showcased him in a positive light. These moves weren't just image management. They were part of a broader understanding that legacy is built not only on empire, but on respect, influence, and narrative control. And yet, with all these moves, the pressures never fully lifted. Fame, as Diddy had long known, is relentless. The media scrutinized every partnership, every business decision, every public appearance. Social media amplified mistakes, missteps, or even innocent actions. For a man whose entire life was about control and influence, the constant observation was both a challenge and a reminder of the stakes involved in being larger than life. This era also saw Diddy embracing mentorship. He understood that true influence extends beyond personal gain. It's about cultivating the next generation. From nurturing young talent in music to advising business-minded artists, Diddy positioned himself as a bridge between generations. He showed that empire building isn't just about personal wealth. It's about shaping culture and creating opportunities for others to thrive. And yet, the world was still watching closely. Past controversies, rumors, and headline-grabbing disputes never fully disappeared. They lingered as shadows behind the spotlight, reminding Diddy and the public alike that reinvention is a delicate balance. Too much flash can seem opportunistic. Too little and irrelevance creeps in. But Diddy had always been a master of timing. He knew when to step forward, when to pivot, and when to let others chase the story while he built quietly behind the scenes by the mid-2010s. The strategy had paid off. Diddy had successfully reclaimed his position not just as a mogul, but as a symbol of resilience. His business ventures flourished. His music ventures remained influential. His brand, lifestyle, and presence maintained a level of cultural dominance that few could rival. And most importantly, he had done it on his terms, demonstrating that reinvention isn't just about survival. It's about controlling the narrative and owning the future. This period of resurgence didn't erase the past, nor did it eliminate scrutiny. Instead, it redefined it. Diddy showed the world that the very qualities that made him a target visibility, ambition, influence could also be leveraged as tools for renewal. He became a living example of how empires evolve, how reputations are managed, and how power can be reclaimed even after periods of challenge. But even as Diddy demonstrated resilience and strategic brilliance, the narrative of a man who had risen, stumbled, and returned would always be intertwined with questions of legacy, influence, and the human cost of power. The public saw the comeback, the success, and the triumph. Few fully understood the pressures, sacrifices, and constant calculation that underpinned every move as this era closed. One truth became undeniable. Sean Diddy Combs was not just a survivor. He was an architect of his own legend. He had weathered storms, adapted to changing times, and leveraged every tool at his disposal to remain not only relevant, but influential. Yet, with every empire comes a reckoning. Every triumph carries echoes of the past, and every comeback sets the stage for the next challenge. For Diddy, the story of reinvention wasn't the conclusion, was another chapter in a journey that had always been larger than life. And as he looked ahead, the world would continue to watch, question, and marvel at the man who had built, lost, and rebuilt his empire on his own terms. By the late 2010s and into the 2020s, Sean Diddy Combs had achieved something very few people ever do. He had transcended his own industry. He wasn't just a musician, a producer, or a fashion mogul. Anymore, he had become a cultural institution. His influence stretched across music, fashion, business, and lifestyle, touching millions of lives globally. Yet with this level of achievement came questions that no award, no deal, and no headline could fully answer. What is the cost of greatness? And what is left behind when an empire becomes bigger than the man himself? Diddy's story has always been about ambition, resilience, and reinvention. From the streets of Harlem to the creation of Bad Boy Entertainment, to becoming one of the most powerful figures in music and business, his journey is a blueprint for success. But along with the triumphs came pressures that few could see, let alone survive. Fame demands constant vigilance. Power requires perpetual strategy. Influence carries the weight of expectation from fans, collaborators, critics, and competitors. Every move is watched, every decision scrutinized. And Diddy has always been aware that staying at the top is far more challenging than reaching it, even as he solidified his empire. Diddy's life remained a balancing act between public scrutiny and private reality. The headlines never stopped. Every rumor, past controversy, or business dispute could resurface at any moment. Social media ensured that nothing ever truly faded from memory. But Diddy's genius has always been his ability to manage perception while continuing to build. He understood that legacy is not just what you achieve, so you are remembered. How your empire continues to influence the world, and how your story is told for generations. Mentorship became a major focus in this stage of his life. Diddy wasn't just creating his own path. He was shaping the paths of those who followed him. Young artists. Diddy's journey is also a reflection on the nature of public perception. The world often sees only the surface, the parties, the awards, the fashion lines, the chart-topping hits. But behind that, there's a story of discipline, resilience, strategy, and relentless work ethic. The empire that Diddy built did not happen by accident. It was forged through decades of careful planning, risk-taking, and an unyielding belief in his vision. It's a reminder that greatness is rarely glamorous at its core. It is demanding, exhausting, and often invisible. And yet, for all the challenges, the controversies, and the scrutiny, Diddy has maintained one constant. He is a force of cultural significance. His ability to rise, fall, and rise again is part of what makes his story compelling. He has shown the world that empire building is a marathon, not a sprint. That influence is more than fame. And that the legacy of a mogul is measured not just in dollars, but in the lives touched, the culture shaped, and the paths paved for the next generation. As this chapter of his story closes, it is clear that Diddy's influence will continue to resonate. He has survived storms, navigated controversies, and reinvented himself countless times. He has set the bar for what it means to be a modern mogul, and in doing so, has created a blueprint for anyone daring enough to dream on a grand scale. But with every empire comes reflection. The higher the rise, the more profound the lessons, the sharper the pressures, and the greater the cost in the end. Sean Combs stands not just as a figure of music or business, but as a symbol of relentless ambition, strategic mastery, and enduring influence. His story is proof that success is never simple, that the price of greatness is constant vigilance, and that legacy is built not only on achievement, but on the ability to weather storms, adapt, and persist when the world is watching. For Diddy, the journey has always been bigger than himself. And perhaps that is the truest mark of his greatness. A man who rose from nothing, built an empire, faced scrutiny, and continues to shape culture in ways the world will feel for decades to come as we step into the present day. One thing is undeniable. Sean Diddy Combs is more than a musician, more than a producer, more than a businessman. He is a cultural institutional force whose influence has shaped music, fashion, lifestyle, and the very way we think about success in hip-hop and beyond. His journey is a testament to ambition, resilience, and the power of reinvention. But it's also a story about the human cost of greatness and the price one pays to stay at the top. Even after decades in the spotlight, Diddy continues to evolve. His empire spans multiple industries, from music and fashion to spirits, media, and beyond. Yet he remains rooted in the principles that built his legacy: vision, strategy, and an unshakable belief in his own ability to shape culture. He mentors the next generation, invests in emerging talent, and continues to influence trends worldwide. While the names, faces, and platforms around him change, Diddy's impact is constant, undeniable, and ever-expanding. But his story is not just about triumph. It's also about challenge, scrutiny, and navigating a world where every move is magnified. Fame and power bring relentless pressure, and the higher one rises, the more intense the spotlight becomes. Diddy has faced controversies, rumors, and relentless public examination. Yet he has consistently demonstrated the ability to adapt, to pivot, and to reclaim narrative control. His resilience serves as a blueprint for anyone striving to survive and thrive in the most competitive, high-stakes arenas of life. What makes Diddy remarkable is not just the empire he built, but how he built it. From the early days of Bad Boy Records to the global success of CROC, from Sean John to television ventures, Diddy has understood the value of timing, perception, and influence. He didn't just follow culture, he created it. He transformed music, redefined fashion, and showed the world that hip-hop is not just entertainment. It's power, it's commerce, and it's a vehicle for legacy. And yet, legacy is never guaranteed. It requires vigilance, reinvention, and the courage to confront challenges head-on. Diddy's story shows us that even the most iconic figures must continuously navigate scrutiny, balance personal ambition with public expectation, and make decisions that will echo for decades. His journey reminds us that greatness is never simple. It is earned, defended, and often tested under intense pressure as we reflect on. Before we wrap up, let's pause for a moment and think about what Sean Diddy Combs' journey really teaches us. This isn't just a story about music, business, or fame. It's a story about vision, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. From the streets of Harlem to global superstardom, Diddy's life shows us that ambition alone isn't enough. It's about strategy, adaptability, and the courage to reinvent yourself when the world expects you to stay the same. And that's where you come in. Every empire starts with a decision. Every legacy begins with one bold move, whether you're creating, building, or chasing your own dreams. The lessons from Diddy's rise and resilience are universal. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't let fear of failure or public opinion hold you back. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a brick in the foundation of your own empire. Now, here's what I want you to do. If this video inspired you, leave a comment down below and share your biggest takeaway. Did Diddy's story of ambition and reinvention resonate with you? Or did you see a moment where you'd make a different choice? I want to hear your perspective because this isn't just a story about him, it's a conversation about ambition, challenges, and what it really takes to succeed. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. Why? Because we dive deep into the untold stories of hip-hop legends, moguls, and the people who changed the game. From iconic rises to shocking downfalls, we break down every detail in a way that's both dramatic and insightful. You don't want to miss what's coming next. And while you're at it, smash the like button if you've ever felt inspired to take control of your own journey. Sharing this video also helps others see the story of one of hip-hop's most influential figures. And maybe it inspires them to take that next step in their own life. Remember, legends aren't born, they're made through grit, vision, and persistence. Diddy's story proves that, and your story is waiting to be written. So engage, share, comment, and let's continue this journey together. The rise, the challenges, and the legacy of greatness, it's all part of the story we live and learn from every single day.